What we're going to talk about now is this TikTok bullshit. So, I'm sure as everybody knows, the CEO for TikTok was at a congressional hearing or a House hearing, whatever it was. It's confusing the way things work in DC, and it's that way by design. It's supposed to be confusing. So we're going to watch this video that I saw on TikTok. It was sent to me. I watched it, and I think it's a good one to go through because there's a lot of things that we've been told about TikTok that are not true. There's a lot of things that are true, and there's a lot of things that are just being completely left out. Mostly things that are being completely left out. So I talk a lot about how communism and socialism rely on their ability to initiate propaganda to uphold their standard. And the fact is, America is no different, right? We use a lot of propaganda as well. The fact is, American people are not good at recognizing propaganda unless it's something that just doesn't agree with their view. And then they go, oh, it's just propaganda. The fact is, yeah, you're probably not wrong, but what you're believing and propagating is also the result of propaganda. So it goes both ways. But we're going to watch this video right here. I'm going to pause and talk about it like I normally do. And then we're going to play some Diablo 4.
Chu, Chief Executive Officer. Our witness today is Mr.
Oh, what?
Our witness today is Mr. Chu, Chief Executive Officer of TikTok. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Chair Rogers, Ranking Member Pallone, members of the committee, thank you for your time. I am Chu, and I'm from Singapore.
I'm going to stop right there because the major belief has been that the guy running TikTok is Chinese. And he's not. He's from Singapore. He's from Singapore. He moved to America. And he married an American. Like, people do this from China as well. The fact is, it's not better or worse. It just is what it is. And it's important that we know these differences because we've been being told by the media for a long time now, he's from China. So right off the bat, we need to toss that aside. He's from Singapore, right? Doesn't mean anything else. It just means, wow, this is at the very beginning. They've been lying to us about this from the onset. So, moving forward.
That's where I was born. That's where my parents. And after serving in Singapore's military, I moved to the UK to attend college, and then here to the US to attend business school.
Which is very common. All around the world, people do this. They grow up where they're at. They end up in a situation where they figure out a way to get away from where they're from. They go to school somewhere else, the UK, here, somewhere in Europe, or wherever it may be that they go to school. And then they come here because they have a business idea or they want to further their education that they already started, and they continue going with it.
I actually met my wife here. By the way, she was just born a few miles away from here in Virginia. 2 years ago, I became the CEO of TikTok.
Now, that means he's been the CEO for 2 years then, obviously, but TikTok's been around longer than that. So there have been changes in TikTok since he became CEO and a little bit before. Now, this is important to keep in mind because that means that not everything we've been told about TikTok is a lie, but it doesn't also mean it's accurate because has he changed a lot of the things that we're going to be hearing from Congress and that he's being questioned on? Have they changed that? Have they addressed it? Have they done something for it? Or is it just, oh, Chinese have access to your information and it's bad?
Today, we have more than 1 billion monthly active users around the world, including over 150 million in the United States. Our app?
So basically they have about 1/8 of the world's population uses this platform. And about half, it's a little less than half of the US population uses this app. And granted, when you're talking about the US population, you're also talking about infants to adults to old people. You're including everything. So basically every adult is using TikTok for the most part. Like most, you could say like 18 to 40-year-olds in the country are probably on TikTok if you're using that metric.
It's a place where people can be creative and curious, and where close to 5 million American businesses, mostly small businesses, go to find new customers and to fuel their growth. Now, as TikTok...
And it works out very well because TikTok has the easiest algorithm to understand and utilize to get yourself in front of other people and in front of businesses and customers, as well as to promote yourself. If you're trying to do this on YouTube, it's very difficult. If you're trying to do this on Facebook or Instagram, it's very difficult. Their algorithms are set up in a way that's very, very difficult for you to be able to get in front of people. Same with Twitter. It's very, very difficult. So TikTok has made it very easy to understand what to do to possibly get in front of as many people as you can to promote yourself to the widest group you possibly can, which means that these businesses are capable of seeing growth and customer interaction in a way that is unprecedented across any other platform that you could try using. So that'll actually help you with finding the American dream if you're able to get in front of as many people as you can with your own efforts. If you're trying to start a business and use it that way, it's the easiest one to do.
Has grown. We've tried to learn the lessons of companies that have come before us, especially when it comes to the safety of teenagers. While the vast majority of people on TikTok are over 18, one of our fastest growing demographics are people over 35. We spent a lot of time adopting measures to protect teenagers. Many of those measures are firsts for the social media industry. We forbid direct messaging for people under 16, and we have a 16-minute watch time by default for those under 18.
Which is very important to know, that this is the way that it's set up to work. If you're under 16, you don't get DMs. If you're under 18, you have a 16-minute screen time on the app because of the studies that say that this short form content that it was designed with initially, the 15-second, 1-minute videos that increased to 3 minutes, and now you can do 10-minute videos. So they're making it so you can do longer form content on TikTok. But those things are just, there are studies that prove or lean toward proving that this kind of content and the fact that it's just consuming it has allowed for the reduction in the capacity and capability of short-term memory and the ability to focus in young children. Now, personally, I would argue that that's correlation and not causation, because just simply the fact of sitting on their phone all day as a developing young mind, you see kids who are as young as 1 or 2 years old with tablets, and they're on them constantly. This gives them instant gratification from the onset, and they're developing with it. They're not having to learn how to cope with, I have to wait for things. Oh, look, if I work at something over a long period of time, I actually succeed at this. These are lessons that people learn over time and were developed with until more recently because of technology that gave us that short-term capacity of memory that we had. It gave us better long-term memory capacity. It gave us the ability to focus more, because if you weren't focused for longer periods of time, you couldn't hunt correctly to gather food. Couldn't focus for a long period of time, you weren't gathering enough fruits and ground vegetables and things of this nature to survive. And it's over time been a skill that we have evolved away from. And if you were around before we had cell phones, you can remember a time when in your brain you had everybody's phone number memorized. All of them. You might have had a Rolodex because there were obviously going to be people you talk to less often, and you would have to, oh, what was that number? I don't remember. You go through your Rolodex, you'd have their number, boom, there it is. But how many phone numbers do you remember now? With the fact that you just go through your phone to your contacts, boom, here you are, and you call it. You never even hear somebody's phone number. They just take their phone and tap your phone and now you have their contact. Or they take their phone and they just put your number in their phone. Like they hand it to you and you just put it in there, or vice versa. Like it's a lot of the time you never even get the phone number in a verbal way or a written way or any kind of form that you would ever have heard it. So you don't remember their numbers. You never dial it. It's just there. And that has happened very rapidly, which is why I think the argument about the short-term issues and the focus issues, while this is probably contributing to it, it's ridiculous to try and pin it on TikTok because it's the onset of how technology has advanced as a whole. It's not something brand new. It's the fact that now kids are growing up with technology while they're developing, and technology has developed this issue for all of us. We're all doing it. It's not just small children, it's all of us. And to get around this 16-minute watch time, like screen time, where, oh, now it's not going to let you watch this anymore because you're 18 or younger and you need to be doing it, like, you need to go do shit. Go spend time in the world. Go read a book. Do your homework. Go see your friends. Go do a hobby. Go practice a sport. Go develop a skill. If you're creating your account and you're lying about your age, right? You just say, yeah, I'm 19 or I'm 18 so that you can have as much screen time as you want. That's on your parents for not making sure your account is set up correctly. Your parents could also get in there and set up a screen time limit on TikTok for how long you can watch it. Literally, it's in the settings that everybody can set up. You can set up a screen time limit for any account if you so choose. So what they've done is they've promoted free choice by allowing you to choose your screen time while they enforce it for anybody who's under 18. At the same time, you could just lie. And a lot of people do, which was one of the questions that was asked in Congress. And we're not going to see any of the questions that are asked. It was 4 hours of him being there, so we're not going to watch 4 hours of shit. But they asked him about, basically they asked him the question that led into this, and he had said, in order to make sure that kids aren't just lying about their age, we review public posts. Now, public posts, very important to realize it's specifically public posts, in order to make sure that the people in the videos are not lying about their age when they're making their content. That way we can flag their account, we can ban the account, and we can address it. When he was trying to explain this, they cut him off and said, you're monitoring their posts. You're invading their privacy. No, it's a public post. You can take a camera into a public space and videotape whatever you want, so long as it's not something like indecent exposure or something that's illegal, obviously, and you're not breaking the law. If you're in a public building, you can videotape there. Somebody who works there could tell you, you're not allowed to videotape in our building. Yeah, you are. It's public space. If it's a public space, not a private business, they cannot tell you you cannot film in that space. And if a cop tries to tell you that you're not allowed to do it, you can take that ticket and sue the officer who gave it to you. You can sue the department for allowing it to happen. And if a judge tries to enforce you paying a fine or penalizing you in any way, you can sue that judge as well. And you will win. You will win, because there are already judged upon Supreme Court cases that state you are allowed to film in public, because if you are in a public space, you have surrendered your autonomy and expectation of being private. Because you're now in public, you have surrendered your desire, like your capacity of privacy in that space. This is why the paparazzi doesn't get arrested for taking pictures of celebrities on the street getting in and out of vehicles. It's because it's a protected space for you to film and take pictures. They can't complain about it. There's nothing they can legally do about that. Now, if you're on their property, it's a different story. So if they're reviewing public posts, then that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with this. But Congress if you actually go through and you watch the 4 hours, or if you even just sit and watch 1 or 2 hours of it, or half an hour, you're going to see them grill this guy. And anytime he starts to give a response, they cut him off and they don't let him answer. They just wanted to get good little sound bites for the media and good little clickbaity titles for media to put out, which is wild. Instead of actually asking questions and allowing him to respond so that they could gain an understanding of how TikTok operates, and that they could move forward with, is this something that we need to move forward on? Is this something we need to worry about? Can we work with TikTok to take care of some of these issues that we have? Is TikTok doing something to address these issues that we just don't know they're doing, etc.? But if they never let them answer, they're never going to know. And that's what was going on the entire time.
We have a suite of family pairing tools so that parents can participate in their teens' experience and make the choices that are right for their family. We want TikTok to be a place where teenagers can come to learn, which is why we recently launched a feed that exclusively features educational videos about STEM. STEM videos are...
STEM, that's fucking science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It's the STEM programs in education that America has been trying to say that we need to focus on teaching children in order to have a more capable and well-educated group of young adults coming out of school. So they're ignoring arts, which actually help develop the same parts of the brains that help you with STEM programs, and they've defunded art programs in order to simply promote STEM programs. And they have an entire section focused on you being able to watch videos that are specifically about this, which was my initial critiques of TikTok before he was CEO and when it was operated within China, because it's not anymore. When it was operating within China, China's algorithm there was pretty much very educational, very inspiring, and pushing young children to become great adults, well-educated and knowledgeable adults that are capable of great things, whereas ours seem to be giving kids nonsense and making them stupid. This addresses that concern.
Already have over 116 billion views on TikTok. And I think TikTok is inspiring a new generation to discover a passion for math and science. Now, I would also like to talk about national security concerns that you have raised, that we take very, very seriously.
And these are legitimate concerns to have, but something that Congress is not bringing up before he gets into this, I want to bring up very, very important facts. If you are using an Apple phone, an Apple Watch, a Google phone, a Google Watch, if you're using a Samsung because it's run on a Google program, if you're using Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, pretty much anything developed by any kind of technology company that's operating out of Silicon Valley or that does business in China, they're giving information to our government. They're They're lobbying our politicians very heavily when they're running for office. They help fund those campaigns. They lobby our politicians when they're in office. They try to push their efforts to promote their business politically. You also have our politicians investing into these companies, or they're telling their spouses to invest into these companies, the way Nancy Pelosi's done in her entire career. And what happens is when these people are pushing that kind of a thing, and then TikTok comes around and it's actually taking viewership from these platforms, it's taking engagement from these platforms, what's happening is they're losing their money. Whereas if you're on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, they're selling your information. That's how they're making their money, is they sell your information. And do you get a piece of that pie? No, you don't. You never see a return. You're basically just free labor because you are providing the goods that they sell. So you are basically the guy out on a farm growing wheat or oats or any kind of crop that you want. You've got an orchard of apples or whatever it is. And then instead of being able to sell that to the distributing company or to a grocery store, they just come and take your fucking crops and then they sell it. That's the way social media works, is they're taking what you're growing and then they're selling it, and you're not getting compensated for your work that's giving them money. You're not getting a piece of it. That's called slavery, is it not? Isn't that slavery? So rather than that being addressed, TikTok, you legitimately, if you get 1,000 followers on TikTok, you have access to making lives. And I don't know if you still are able to, since I've never really cared to develop TikTok enough to get to that point. I guess I'll start working on it. Why not? But at the same time, once you get to 1,000, you can do lives. When you're doing lives, you're able to make money. It might not be a lot of money, but you're able to start making money to some extent. And the fact is if they're going to give you any amount of money, you're doing better there than you are on other social media platforms that make it incredibly difficult for you to make money on. So why not? Like, how is that worse, right? Especially when all of these companies are already giving information away. They're already giving that information, but because our government and politicians benefit from it, they don't seem to give a shit. Not to mention the fact that the concern here is China. Because if your company, for your company to operate in China, you have to have an office in China, according to Chinese law. And when you have that office in China, it's going to be run by a Chinese national. Because the way that they raised Chinese to be very dependent on China, as well as propagated to believe that China, this is the best way to live, right? This is the way they run it. It is what it is. They also have an influence in that company through the Chinese CEO at that office, etc., etc. Apple has offices in China developing their goods. Basically, all of them do. So they're all doing this, but we're only worried about TikTok. If our politicians actually gave a single flying fuck, they would be doing this with all of them. Instead of, we are going to ban TikTok, they'd be saying, we need to relook at the way that we allow tech companies to operate and do business with China. And that's not what they're doing.
Let me start by addressing a few misconceptions about ByteDance, of which we are a subsidiary.
What he says here, not very accurate. BitDance or ByteDance is, because it's pronounced both ways. He calls it ByteDance. A lot of people call it BitDance. The thing is, this company, I believe, is like 20% or so owned by the CCP. So it's a fair assessment to say that you guys would be working with China through your overarching corporation that you're a subsidiary of.
ByteDance is not owned or controlled by the Chinese government. It's a private company. 60% of the company is owned by global institutional investors.
What does that mean? See, this is what I'm talking about right here. Global institutional investors. Okay, so are these like the guys that are getting together at like Bohemian Grove? Are these the people that are going to the meetings for how to move forward with the government globally as a global effort? Is it that type of thing? Because China's part of that too. Is it, this does not exclude China, right? China is part of this 60% right here.
20% is owned by the founder and 20% owned by employees around the world.
And just to be clear, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all, because we don't give a fuck about the fact that they're all doing it and that China owns a portion of all of them, where it's able to access some of the information, if not all of the information, from all of these companies. So what's the difference?
ByteDance has 5 board members. 3 of them are American. Now, TikTok itself is not available in mainland China.
No, they removed it, and I'm not sure exactly why. I've heard that it's because of the trans efforts and the way that that's influencing the youth, and that they don't want that in China. I've heard that that's part of it. Now, maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe you have a problem with trans people having some sort of interaction with children. Maybe you don't. The fact is, they should be able to say what they want, but when you have certain people who were on TikTok that I'm sure everybody knows, his name is Jeffrey, whatever the fuck, and he goes on and starts all his videos, hey kids, hi kids, and then says crazy shit like, I have a Patreon you can go to talk more privately with me, and he's just trying to indoctrinate your kids. Well, guess what? He's banned. He's not on TikTok. He was on TikTok and now he's not. Because TikTok allows you to say whatever the fuck you want for the most part. Their algorithm catches certain things, but it's not as robust in catching things with the same quickness as, say, YouTube, where if you say the wrong word, your entire video is now flagged, it's demonetized, it may just get a strike and be removed, etc., etc. This is the way this is the way Twitter used to work. This works on Facebook and Instagram, right? Where they're catching certain words and they just remove your shit. TikTok does do this with certain things. It does not do this with other things. So it's, if you're going to nitpick certain shit like this, what you're arguing is that you don't want free speech from predominantly the same people who are complaining that Twitter is better now because it has free speech, or they're supporting Twitter now because it has more free speech, more, not completely, but more, or they're criticizing Twitter because it now has more free speech, and it's too damaging and too risky, right? That's what the leftists say. But then the leftists are on TikTok and they're able to say whatever the fuck they want, and then they get mad about the fact that the people who disagree with them can now say whatever the fuck they want when they're on Twitter the same way they can on TikTok. So what's the problem here? It's discrimination. It's discriminatory against TikTok is all that's going on. It's not actual concern, and it's not actually thought out.
We're headquartered in Los Angeles and in Singapore, and we have 7,000 employees in the US today.
So what that means is they're not headquartered in China. Right?
Still, we have heard important concerns about the potential for unwanted foreign access to US data and potential manipulation of the TikTok US ecosystem. Our approach has never been to dismiss or trivialize any of these concerns.
Which makes sense, and those are fair concerns to have. But once again, they're only concerned when it comes to TikTok. Why are they not concerned about literally every other similar company that does the exact same shit? Why?
We have addressed them with real action. Now, that's what we've been doing for the last 2 years, building what amounts to a firewall that seals off protected US user data from unauthorized foreign access. The bottom line is this: American data stored on American soil by an American company, overseen by American personnel.
Which is what they're developing. It's not fully in place. So this is something they're developing in, I believe, Texas is where they're putting this. And they're in the process of moving all of their data to that spot to keep it there, where it's going to be protected by a firewall to keep out foreign eyes as much as possible in order to put these concerns at ease. This is one of the things that he tried to answer, and that they interrupted him, told him that's not what we're asking. They just wanted him to say yes or no to questions that are more nuanced than they wanted to hear.
We call this initiative Project Texas. That's where Oracle is headquartered. Today, US TikTok data is stored by default in Oracle servers. Only vetted personnel operating in a new company called TikTok US Data Security can control access to this data. Now, additionally, we have plans for this company to report to an independent American board with strong security credentials. Now,
which probably means a cybersecurity company, right? Which is on the rise in America, headlining this. or spearheading this. And to be honest, America's probably toward the forefront of capability in cybersecurity because we spend more money on it than everybody else does. And we have the most things to keep secret from foreign governments just within the military-industrial complex. So we probably have the most robust cybersecurity capabilities in the country, and that's exactly what he is saying they're going to be doing.
Now, there's still some work to do. We have legacy US data sitting in our servers in Virginia and in Singapore. We're deleting those, and we expect that to be complete this year.
Yeah, see.
When that is done, all protected US data will be under the protection of US law and under the control of the US-led security team. This eliminates the concern that some of you have shared with me that TikTok user data can be subject to Chinese law.
Once again, that's a fair concern to have. But why the fuck do they not care when it comes to the other companies that are similar and that do business in China that fall under the Chinese laws that I'd mentioned earlier? Why is it unconcerned when that's the case? You don't see them grilling these other people this way. You see it with TikTok. Because they benefit financially and politically. They gain power from the money that they gain from these other companies that TikTok is putting in jeopardy by having a more desirable, a more capable, and a more just desired system. Like, which, congratulations, we're a capitalist nation. That's how this shit works. If your product isn't going to compete well and they make a better product, you lose. That's how it works. If you're not able to adapt to the new innovations of the time, you're going to lose. Not only that, but because of the way that like Zuckerberg and Facebook have done things with Instagram and other things that they've absorbed, the way that they've gone through with filtering information and censoring things, a lot of people don't want to use it anymore. And then you go to TikTok, where while it still does a lot of that shit, it doesn't do it to the same extent. So it's going to be viewed as a better platform. It's going to be viewed as a more desired platform. Congratulations. That's how business works in a capitalist economy. Plain and simple.
This goes further, by the way, than what any other company in our industry have done.
It really does.
We will also provide unprecedented transparency and security for the source code for the TikTok app and recommendation engine. Third-party validators like Oracle and others will review and validate our source code and algorithms. This will help ensure the integrity of the code that powers what Americans see on our app.
I don't know what else you would want them to do to address these concerns. I really don't. And like I said, he's only been the CEO for 2 years. And as he pointed out, these are changes they've been working toward over the last 2 years since he became CEO. In the last 2 years is when TikTok stopped being able to operate in China. Okay. So a lot of these concerns predate when he was in charge, and he's been addressing them. Like, TikTok's been working to address these concerns under his leadership, right? So he gets the credit. He's the leader. He gets the credit, good or bad, for what goes on. The same way that Elon Musk, as the leader of Twitter, gets the credit, good or bad. Of Tesla, good or bad. The way Jeff Bezos for anything with Amazon, good or bad. That's how leadership works. And under his leadership, they've been making these changes. Maybe you weren't aware. I wasn't aware of a lot of the things they were doing until this hearing took place. At the same time, I don't think Congress has a single fucking idea of what's going on. I think half of the people there that were discussing this had no fucking clue what they were talking about. I don't think anybody that was there from the Democrats had any idea what the fuck TikTok even was. They seemed absolutely clueless in their questioning and had to resort to notes that seemed to lead them into a place where it was like, if you just had a surface level knowledge of TikTok, you wouldn't seem lost. But they did. They seemed lost in their questions. And then you had the Republicans, because this is a very bipartisan, like, this is the most bipartisan effort in Congress right now. And the Republicans are just pissed. And they're pissed because of the propaganda against TikTok. The money that they get from TikTok's competition. that puts it in jeopardy, right? So it comes down to greed, it comes down to power, it comes down to control. And the fact is, if you're on TikTok, you can find a lot of interesting shit. You can find people who are pulling up articles and proof, and they're bringing receipts to their shit that show you and expose a lot of these politicians that are pissed on the Republican side, that are ignorant on the Democrat side, and expose them as shitty leaders, as shitty representatives of their districts and of the people that they're supposed to be representing, as we are a republic. They don't like it. TikTok is actually helping to unite people in a way that they don't like to see. You have a lot of people who are pushing racist propaganda across all platforms, to include TikTok. However, on TikTok is the only place that I have seen people not only putting out things to dispute and disrupt racism and bring people together, but I see more people of color doing this on TikTok than anywhere else. I also see more people of color, and I'm going to use that term because we're on Twitch, by the way. But you see more people of color and more demographics of people discussing the reasons that they do not agree with the Democratic Party and Democratic policy, the reason that they align with Republicans, the reason that they see themselves as libertarian and don't agree with either side. There's more of that on TikTok than anywhere. It disrupts the two-party system, it disrupts the division that they're all putting out there, including through the media, and it helps bring people together better, which is what you need. You don't need all this division. It's disrupting their propaganda campaigns. It's disrupting their money. It's disrupting their ability to maintain power, because the kids who are on this app, you got to think, these 18 to 25-year-olds who are now able to vote, who maybe haven't voted yet because it's the hardest demographic to be able to get people to vote from, are now seeing things that are very political that they're engaging with, that they're gaining an understanding of what's going on from. They're hearing both sides and seeing why is it that this person doesn't like this? Why is it that this person does like this? Why is it that even though this person says that this is flawed, that this is the way it should work? Why is that? And they're able to form their own opinion freely, the way that you're supposed to.
We will further provide access to researchers, which helps them study and monitor our content ecosystem. Now, we believe we are the only company that offers this level of transparency.
I think he's actually right. I haven't looked into any of their transparency because I don't care. I don't care. But I do know that you're not going to find any of this from Apple. I do know that you're not going to find any of this from Google. I do know that you're not going to find any of this from Facebook or Instagram or any of the other companies they've absorbed. They don't care. They want to hold the secrets, they want to bar the gates, and they don't want to let anybody through. But because they give enough money and they offer enough power and they say, oh, well, you don't want this type of information getting out, we'll help you with this propaganda campaign, in a way that TikTok is not cooperating. So, supporting of maintaining power and building and maintaining division is what's going on across the rest of the platforms, as well as just mainstream media. I don't see that to the same extent on TikTok at all. I see people doing lives all the time where they're having debates and discussions about things that are political, that are social political, that are identity politics, that are religious, in a way that you get banned on other platforms for discussing. But because they're just having a discussion and they keep it civil, they aren't getting banned, and they're having these debates and discussions with hundreds to thousands of viewers that are all listening and typing things in and chirping in, or they join in and they voice their opinions and have the discussion, which is very American of them. That's very American. That's a very American process, because they're using free speech to solve these issues and have these discussions instead of fighting about it.
Now, trust is about actions we take, We have to earn their trust with decisions we make for our company and our products. The potential security, privacy, content manipulation concerns raised about TikTok are really not unique to us.
Exactly my point. It's not unique to them at all. What is unique to them is Congress's desire to target them discriminatorily.
Same issues apply to other companies. We believe what's needed are clear, transparent rules that apply broadly to all tech companies. Ownership is not at the core of addressing these concerns. Now, as I conclude, there are more than 150 million Americans who love our platform, and we know we have a responsibility to protect them, which is why I'm making the following commitments to you and to all our users. Number one, we will keep safety, particularly for teenagers, as a top priority for us.
Now, what does that look like? Like I outlined earlier, they're making efforts. Now, is it going to work out perfectly? No, nothing will. Nothing will. Because how are you going to ensure that kids that shouldn't be using your app aren't using your app? How are you going to ensure that kids who are not 18 or older are not lying about it? Well, you have to do something to figure it out. And apparently Congress doesn't like them doing literally the only thing that makes sense to do, which is reviewing publicly posted content to ensure that that's not taking place and people aren't just lying about their age. And then they say that you're invading privacy because, once again, they're trying to discriminatorily target TikTok in a way that is baffling.
Number two,
unless you understand the money, the power, the propaganda that it disrupts, the fact that it's helping to unite people, which is dangerous to people in power because there's far more of the peasant class than there is of the royal class, which is what we're seeing. So, could TikTok impact politics? Abso-fucking-lutely. And it probably will. Is it going to impact individual elections? Maybe. But what I'm saying when I make that comment is that we're going to have people who are more politically engaged and more politically knowledgeable in the next 10 to 20 years than we do right now. Because of the way TikTok operates. And because of the content that people are putting on TikTok and the amount of engagement that it has.
We will firewall protected US data from unwanted foreign access. Number three,
and doing it from US soil with US employees, with a US company in cybersecurity to ensure that it's robust and capable. What more can we ask for? Really, what more can we ask for? I don't know of another company that's doing this to that extent.
TikTok will remain a place for free expression and will not be manipulated by...
Remain a place for free expression, which falls under your First Amendment. Freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and peacefully assemble. Right? So, they're trying to uphold your ability to do this. The thing is, they have to be responsible about it. It's a fine line that has to be walked, and it's not simple. But at least they're making efforts. Will it be implemented in a way that works? Maybe, maybe not. If it doesn't work, will they react and try to correct it? So far, it seems so when you look at the last 2 years of changing and innovation, which has led to China saying, get the fuck out of here, you can't operate here anymore, and they've created something that's similar, and they use there now instead of TikTok, and similar other things. Because, once again, look at what I've said TikTok provides that disrupts our society and our politicians' investment and desires in things like propaganda and division. Then you look at what I'd said earlier about how communist and socialist nations rely on propaganda to uphold their position. How do you think it worked out for people in China, seeing the content people in America were making, debating communism and socialism versus having a democratically elected republic like we do here, and a capitalist economy? Do you think that that helped China maintain its structure that it has? Or did it disrupt things? Did it put it at risk? Because That was the goal of U.S. politics when we opened trade with China after the Cold War, during the Cold War. I don't remember when we did it, but we'd cut off these things with China during the Cold War, and then we'd started to engage in trade with them, and the goal was that opening trade with Russia and China would allow the people there to see that capitalism and a republic is a better system than what they have. That way they would change their system, because it has to come from them. You can't force this. You cannot force freedom on people. They have to want it. And that was the goal, was to show them freedom, to lead by example so that they could want it. So with TikTok, they were actually engaging with Americans who were having these discussions in China in a way that they weren't really able to through trade. So the trade didn't work the way that we thought it would. In fact, it seems to have backfired, mostly. But TikTok seems to have succeeded there completely by accident in that regard. I think that's the real reason it's banned in TikTok. You can't ban TikTok in TikTok. It's not a place. It's not a real place. But that's why I think TikTok is actually banned in China. I don't think it has anything to do with the trans people. I think it has to do with the fact that China is extremely racist. They can't stand black people, for one. And there's a lot of black people on TikTok that openly talk about the reasons that communism is terrible, that socialism is terrible, and how minorities in America have risen to greatness because of the democratically elected republic, which is our politics and the way our politics is run, and our capitalist economy, which is how our economy operates. So they don't like that combination of things. You know what I mean? I think that's more likely to be the reason that they banned it. It's a threat to their nation to have their people talking and debating with Americans who are like, well, look, here's information that you didn't see because the CCP doesn't allow you to have this kind of news that has this kind of facts. They don't give you these historical documents. They don't tell you these parts of history. They don't let you see these things. Meanwhile, we can show you.
By any government. And fourth, we will be transparent and we will give access to third-party independent monitors to remain accountable for our commitments. I'll be grateful for any feedback that you have, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you very much.
So yeah, I think that's about all there is to say about TikTok, to be honest. Like, there are legitimate concerns that I understand people having, and I hope that I helped address them, as well as Mr. Shu's accounting in Congress with the 5 minutes he had to actually talk without being interrupted. So